friends, how's it going? It is Michael Parker, and welcome back to Michael Parker Media. Today is November 2nd of 2023. It is Day of the Dead, and I'm joined today by the lovely Sloan Bella, celebrity psychic here in Los Angeles, Hollywood, California, with a plethora, gigantic legion of online fans on YouTube. Sloan, how's it going?
Legion.
A legion.
A legion. A legion of popcorn eating, diet soda drinking fan base.
I ain't judging.
Yeah.
But it's good to see you.
You too. How was your trip?
The trip was great. Maybe we'll get to that. I just returned from Turkey. Some of the people know that. But I sent you just a handful of questions the other day, but I woke up.
I see them. I've got them.
I woke up this morning. I didn't sleep well last night, Sloan. I haven't slept well since I got back from Turkey. But I woke up this morning with this kind of sadness and this compulsion to ask you about something. Today is my late younger brother's birthday. And one of the things that's going through my mind, because a lot of what you do is mediumship. You know, I mean, you do a lot of things. You're a clairvoyant, you're an astrologer, you're a medium. You're very famous for that. And one of the things
I'm laughing. I'm a mom. I'm a cat mom. Yeah.
You are that too. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit. But what I was wondering about, and this has always haunted me, and I think people in the audience will appreciate it, is why do the people that we love, when they pass, sometimes not reach out to us? I think about my brother all the time. He passed in June of 2010. We weren't even a year apart.
Yeah.
And I've only had him in a couple of dreams. And in the dreams that I had, I was not acknowledging the fact that he was past. You know, sometimes in a dream, you understand reality and you know that you're in a dream. So it was just like things usually happen. But that was very few and far between times that that's happened. Why do our loved ones not contact us?
Okay, that's a good question. It's not that they don't contact us. I said the same thing because when Keithy died, I did not get the same information that I got from his brother when he died. So I have two children that have passed, one step and one bio, and both of them communicated differently. Okay, so completely differently. I have four parents that have passed, and some come through and they're right there, and others are not. So the reasons I find are if you're shattered by grief, so a lot of times your own grief can put a wall up for them to get through, because keep in mind, when they try to communicate with you, they have to use whatever skill they have on the other side, and then you have to be able to receive it. So if you are, as I'm sure you were devastated by your brother's passing, if you are distraught, you know, you can't feel him, you can't think, you're sobbing, you're in grief, you're drunk, you're high, whatever it is that people do, it's very hard for them to get through. That is why they would come to you in a dream state, because you don't have your natural defenses up in a dream state. So when we sleep, we're not thinking like, oh, that's not real. I have to do the laundry, that horn, the neighbor's dog's barking. We're completely out of our bodies in a sleep state. So they can meet us. It's easier energetically for them and for us, okay? Because we're on this side. The reason you don't feel your brother is dead is because he's not. We are. I sound really stupid when I say that, but we are actually the ones that are dead. And when they cross over, there's also an understanding of they can watch us, and unless we're tuned into them, and it's not every single person. As I said, you could take any medium with 700 family members that have passed, and they're not all going to pick them up. Like I could not find my son's energy when he passed. Okay. So like it seemed like it should have come to me. His brother came immediately to me. Immediately. And I did predict both deaths. Okay. So I knew both were going to die and told both of them prior. So like the week prior, actually. So one came to me very, very clear. That's about his energy. So your brother's energy and the way that your brother communicates is up to him. And the way you receive it is up to you. Like, how does your body handle it? Also, if there's been any kind of trauma, so let's say it's, well, not really a murder, because a murder, a person tends to really want our attention here. You know, like they're like, hey, I didn't do this. But if there's like a traumatic accident, an overdose, something that takes them out quick where they don't quite understand, because they're not always shown right away. Well, they are like within a week of our time, but I mean, just because you die doesn't mean you know you're dead, and doesn't mean you understand, and doesn't mean all of your pieces are together. So they have to come to an understanding of it as well. And so I suspect that your brother came through probably within the first 11 months of his passing and then kind of disappeared to heal. That's what I would assume. That's how I feel they do it. Not everybody. My stepson that I speak about, this that was 27 years ago, when he passed, but he was there, showing me everything. And then after the first year, he went away and didn't come back for a couple of years. Like, I didn't pick him up anywhere. And I wasn't worried about it, but I couldn't feel him, so he did the opposite, stayed the first year and then left. And my understanding was they were shutting him down to heal the energy. So sometimes they have to watch us and communicate, and other times they have to heal, almost like school or a hospice or something, to bring them back to neutral energetically. And then keep in mind, once they cross through, I'm going to use the word dimension, as opposed to like there's heaven and earth, because
Sure.
I believe there's different levels. So it's like climbing in altitude, if you will. If you're at the top of Mount Everest, it's really hard to speak because of the altitude. That is how it is for them, because the frequencies are kind of different. They're not on an even base. They're different. So he has to lower himself to come to you, and your vibration has to raise itself. So in your sleep state, that would be the easiest way to get you to do it, because we're out of body when we're sleeping. So you're not encumbered by the physical and all your human Michael day-to-day thoughts, right? Like all your day in and day out thoughts. So for your brother, I also feel like your brother had it. This is just what I pick up right now. And I'm not the same kind of medium since Keith died. So it's been difficult for me, or I read it differently now. I don't know how to explain it, but my body went into shock. But your brother seems to think at first that everybody was better off without him, is what it is. Like there was something to do with him where he thought, like, I'm going to be giving them a burden. So I feel if you didn't feel him a lot, he could feel your sadness, which he thought was problematic that he was causing. And I don't think he wanted to cause it. That's actually what I just picked up with him. So I feel like he was conscientious about not burdening you with his energy.
That makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this. Would you have many videos where you channel various celebrities or people, either per request of a single person or for your audience? How does it come? How does it come through to you? Because on Saturday, I was at Day of the Dead, Hollywood Forever, and I was standing above Chris Cornell's grave.
Yes.
A singer that I love very much.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about that. And you had done some work on him. So how do you connect with these people to get this information, either for a person who requested or for your audience?
Or for anybody. Yeah, for any old person. Because we can all do it to some degree or another, maybe not do it for a living. But with Chris Cornell, that was a very specific thing. I had a person who was a musician that asked me why he killed himself the week that he hung himself.
Right.
Allegedly. I'm sorry, I have to do it. So I was able, at first I thought he did, okay? But this was interesting because his soul or person, it's actually energy, okay? It's not, we call the soul, but it's actually the essence, the scent of the person. That energy of his immediately changed, like midway through the reading. So say the reading was like 40 minutes in, I suddenly said he didn't kill himself. Like it just hit me. What I was seeing was what he thought he did because he was ambushed. And this I said, I think in 2018 or 19, I forget when he died, whichever year it was. I started doing that video. He was one of my first. Very clear, very clear. Him and Princess Di actually very clear. The energy kind of comes through to me. So I will write down what I get before I choose to film. So like if I'm going to film tomorrow on Friday and I pick a person, which my next person is going to be Cheyenne Brando. Okay. So Marlon Brando's daughter. Don't know why. If she pops into my head, then I'm inclined to focus on her energy. Okay. So that's how it works. because I really don't care who I read, really, whatever. But if I hear their name, so I'll focus. Then I look at their astrology chart and or information I get. So I kind of open my mind by looking at their time of birth, their day of birth. Okay, so for me, that opens my mind. And then it can be images, it can be feelings, it can be words, it can be little vignettes and snippets of things. It can be just out of my mouth. This is, like random kind of stuff. So that's how it actually happens. And I use the word now energetic reading, which I did not do before my son passed. I didn't use that word. I do use it now because the energy or the essence is what we're reading. Okay, it's the essence of that energy. So it's like they're speaking through a megaphone or a long tube. And by the time it travels to us, they are elsewhere, kind of. They're not right here. They can be, but not always. So it's kind of like, excuse me, cat allergies. It's kind of like an energy reading. So with Chris Cornell, that was very, very specific. And then because I was literally talking to a band member, not of his band, but another competitive friend.
Sure.
And I was on the phone with them. And actually, that person and I are no longer friends because when I changed my opinion of what happened based on what I felt, they didn't want to hear it.
Right. Yes.
And I wouldn't shut up. And then I went public with it and they got mad. So I actually had lost friendships from that. But you also have to learn to trust your physical body. So I would say now I more feel it. So like I get the feeling of the idea that they did this. But it changed for me in 2020, different than I was in 2018 or 19, whenever he died. Again, I can't remember the exact date. I want to say it was July of 2018. Was it that when he died, Chris Cornell?
I was working on a film at that point. I remember the day. It was 2017, 2018, 2019, something like that. It was in August, I believe. But I'm like you. I don't remember the exact date. I just happened to be there Saturday and I was looking at it. I was thinking about him. I was thinking about you. And at what point in your life, because for the audience, I have interviewed Sloan about Sloan in the past, and I will place a link to that interview with this one.
I don't know what I said.
Oh, it was hilarious. I listened to it the other day. So you know, at a young age, you were a stripper, and you said that you used to read for the girls who were dancing. So
Absolutely.
I guess my question, the evolution of your abilities, at what point did you go from reading to being able to get this information from departed souls, departed people?
Oh, that happened as a kid. Like some of my first stories are when my grandfather died and my dad came to pick me up from summer camp. I was away all summer at summer camp. So I was about 11, turning 12, I think. And I'd seen his grandmother. We got into an argument because I was adopted. So there's no way I was raised or ever saw a picture of his grandmother. Okay. But anyway, my dad was an agnostic atheist, disbeliever in God. And as a 4-year-old, I was staunchly about God for some reason, because no one in our house went to church. I mean, for funerals, okay, or maybe once a year, but I usually went with the neighbors, maybe, okay. Anyway, my dad's mom, it would be my grandmother on my dad's side, came to me. She died when he was a teenager, and I told him that there was a God and that she wanted him to believe in God, right? And this set off a war. My childhood was a war of arguments over the existence of God and what is after this world. And I was told, you're crazy. Well, not quite like that, but we just rot in the ground and we die. That's actually what my dad said. I was 4 and 5. And I would get up the next day and I would go downstairs to the kitchen table and say, that's not true. And then when I was talking as his mother, like what she said to me and describing her, he was like, how does this kid know this? So I woke my dad up every night, bringing him messages like she told me to as a kid. I walked in their room, tapped him on the shoulder, and then, this became a war in the house. Like I got physically hit for waking them up at a certain point. But when my grandfather died, he was 97, so it wasn't like it was unexpected, but I was at summer camp. And when I went to the hospital, my dad picked me up and then drove me to the hospital so I could see him because he'd had a heart attack. Because he was 97, right? So anyway, I go in there and I guess he was dead, but they had him strapped to a chair and they hadn't come to my dad had gone to pick me up. He was talking to the nurse who was telling him his dad was dead. And I was talking to my grandfather. So the body was here in the chair and I was talking over here. And my dad thought I was completely crazy, pulled me out of the hospital, threw me into the elevator and said, "You're going home," and shut the fuck up. Not like that, but and shut the bleep up. Sorry, I forget.
That's all right.
Yeah. So it kind of started like that. And then I heard voices all the time as a child, and not schizophrenically. Like I heard voices in the house. I knew people were watching. I knew I could feel them. I knew it. So my family kind of thought I was crazy. And as a teenager, I did do readings to trade bleach for hair. When I was a teenager, like I'll read you on usually the gay hairdressers and their boyfriends. I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer here.
Right.
I get bleach and you can find out about your lovers. So yeah, that's how it started. And I had a best friend die when I was 17 on a motorcycle, incidentally. And I did not know he was dead. And I had a room full of witnesses and nobody knew he was dead. We were in a different town. And he came through the ceiling, and I kind of was a trance medium at the time. So my mediumship has changed. In other words, I fell asleep on the couch and physically stepped into the astral, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I'm awake and talking. So they thought I was sleeping, but they saw my body gesturing and hugging. And then I woke up and said, or was 20 minutes later, my boyfriend at the time said, and I said, "Randy's dead. Like he's dead." And then I went looking for my friend. This is before cell phones. I'm talking in 82 or somewhere in there. I think I was 16, 17, maybe 83, whatever. So I actually went looking, and I didn't find out for 2 weeks that he was dead. I mean, no one told me because they didn't know how to find me. Couldn't find him. Nobody was ever home when I went to his house. So I figured it was okay. Didn't hear anything about it. And then went back to the city, and that was that. But I'd seen him. He came and told me. So it comes in different, ways. And before my before my son passed, his brother on a live YouTube stream, I said, "Oh my God, Jimmy's here. He's coming to get someone." This was about a month before Keith died. Like he showed up, like I saw him and I knew what it meant. I didn't know who. Obviously, I'm thinking older people, right? Not younger. But he's always showed up very physically. So he would be what I call a messenger to me. Like he brings me those messages, if you will. And no one takes them seriously. So it's no good to have the ability, because I've told everybody in the family that one of our sons was good, and no one listens. And they never listen, by the way. People do not listen. So
I know that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you, because right now is a really, at least in my opinion, Sloan, this is the most dangerous time of my life. And I want to ask you, and I'm not asking for predictions on any of this stuff. I want to be clear to the audience. What I'm asking for are your impressions, because things are changing daily. But what is your impression of the situation that we have right now? Do you think that we are spiraling towards a World War III, or do you think this is something that will resolve itself? And I'm talking about, the Israel-Palestine issue could spiral out of control any moment. And then there's other things as well. Ukraine struggles on. But what is your feeling about the global climate at the moment?
I can't believe I'm alive and someone hasn't killed me. That's the first thing. Like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't care about any of it. Meaning, I didn't come to Earth to be here. But having said that, that's only from my knowledge here. What I actually believe is, I don't want to say it's end of times, but we are being captured as a group of energy providers. So this is what the war is about. Is any war really ever real, or does the government imply what happens? Like if I'm a government and you're a government and I say, hate those people in red shoes, then, we get into a fight, right?
Yeah.
And other people take a side for whichever frequency. So what's happening is they're getting ready to actually capture us. And it is a spiritual war. It's most certainly a spiritual war. It is not an earth war. It is a spiritual war for possession of the physicality of what we know as human beings in order to transition us into a different type of human being, one that disconnects from the God source. That's actually what we're talking about, minus the struggles in each and every country, Israel, Ukraine. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, they've been fighting since Jesus was here, is all I can say. That doesn't stop. So I don't really worry about that. I worry for children only, really. Adults,
Yes.
you've lived, but if you're a child, I don't care, that I don't have patience for. But I think they're actually getting ready. We're being enslaved, and people are being distracted by war,
Right.
by this. So we're actually being enslaved. And what they hope to do, this is just my opinion, what they hope to do is enslave us so that when we die, you, me, because we're human, right? We're not vampires. So when we die and we start to leave, they can still entrap us in the reincarnation cycle. So we loop back in. We're not supposed to, I used to think we're supposed to reincarnate. We're not. We've been hijacked out of our natural rhythm.
Mhm.
So we as human beings, not anybody else pretending to be human, because there are disincarnate souls out there on the street. There are pretend people walking around. There are bots. My other son since high school, look at the bot. That's not even a person. I mean, he could see them before this even became popular. You know what I'm saying? But that's what's actually happening. And if they can contain us, okay, they can energetically weaken us, because once we leave here spiritually, we're right at the end. So within the next 1,000 years, say, we're right at the tail end of human beings having to incarnate here. They need us or they die out. And by they, I mean those that do not come from God. Just put it that way. However you want to address that. That's what I think. So it's a war of the soul, actually.
I said a similar thing, not exactly with the depth that you did, on someone else's show just a couple of days ago, that I think these wars are created by people who wish to restructure the planet and the power.
Yes.
And they use these wars for that. But I want to move on, and not to be mundane, but I just have to ask you questions because these are things that are on people's minds. So
of course,
part of the thing that bothers me about both Ukraine and Israel-Palestine is that, and I'm a pretty political person, but it's like I have been very disappointed in the United States not trying to mediate in either one of these conflicts. In fact, it seems like we just immediately took sides and have somewhat instigated. So I find the United States very weak at this point, and that's part of the reason these things are happening at this time. So I guess that brings me to, and here again, I'm not asking for a prediction, I'm asking for an impression. What do you think happens in the presidential election that is upcoming, and are we even going to have an election?
Okay, God help us. I can't listen to it because I'll end up losing half my friends because I just say,
I know.
F politics, because it isn't politics what we're dealing with. These people are all on the same team. So understand your vote doesn't count. And I really mean that. Your vote does not count. They all eat dinner together. They all sleep in the same bed. So call it whatever you want. I actually feel like it's a woman for 2024. I cannot feel the election. And then the funniest thing, I was at a dinner party, somebody asked me the same question. And I said, I was with people who do not think like I do. Okay, so people who just have their own day-to-day opinion, regular, not like us. Okay, so I said, yeah, I think it's going to be a woman. And one of the girls at the table, she's like, you just said she was a man posing as a woman, so it's really a man. I said, that one. That's accurate. And
Okay.
That's who I think.
I know you're talking about Michelle Obama. And listen,
Yes.
a year or so ago, about this time, on another show that I was working at the time, I interviewed, I believe his name was Joel Gilbert, and he wrote a book on this very premise that Michelle Obama will in fact run. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think that's going to happen. But but this is a good segue point because I think this ties into it. What do you think happened to the Obama chef?
Oh my God, they killed him, allegedly. Okay, instantly. I cannot tolerate anymore. It's now a joke when a swimmer who posts about swimming on his Instagram, okay?
Right.
I've always had a pool I can swim. I've never posted a picture of myself swimming.
Right.
This man bothered to, which means he's an avid swimmer, okay? Do you see what I'm saying? Like he's an avid athlete. Like I hike, I post pictures of it. That's like me dying climbing up a hill. It's not going to happen, okay, without some help. So I actually feel what I feel like is, and by the way, the energy of the chef, I feel like he knew everything that went on, but they had to get rid of him, unbeknownst to him, because he wasn't a disloyal person. He wouldn't have told anybody anything.
But he was a risk.
Yes, he was a risk, but it's a shame because they really, he didn't, like, oh, not everyone deserves to, let me word that again. I'm not saying anyone deserves to die, but he
I know what
really
you're
was
saying.
the least of their problems, okay? And they took him out and because his energy is clear. They took him out. Now the energy's on them. So they're not going to get away with it. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. He's not going to win for doing that. He should have left that guy alone and just called him a liar or something if he came out. But I don't get he was going to come out.
What was going to come out?
Well, I mean, I don't think he was going to tell on the Obamas. I don't think he was going to tell on them.
But they feared that he was.
Yes, and it has to do with the timing, and it has to do with him quitting his job. No one told me this. This is what I picked up, but I feel like he was about to quit his job with them and go to somebody else. And so I feel like he was transitioning over here, and they couldn't allow that, so they killed him. And I do actually feel there were 2 witnesses there. I know they all know what happened.
For sure.
I know the police are lying like a bunch of sacks who shouldn't be doing that. It's disgusting.
There supposedly was a female paddleboarder there at the time. They find him the next morning. I don't know who the paddleboarder was, but I believe that the Obamas were on site almost immediately. So yeah, of course there were witnesses.
Yeah, no, there were witnesses, and no one's going to speak. And as a group of people, we should be screaming at these people.
Of course.
If we actually did, think of what they talk about the Salem witch trials, which was really about herbalists and midwives and all of that, right?
Right.
So they call them witch and they kill them because that's a financial thing. Why don't we as a group of people, but everybody's such a freaking coward. I'll go out there. I'll go to Newsom's door. I'll go to the White House. I don't care. Why do we as a group of people stand together with pitchforks and get those people out of office? And I'm not kidding you, but people actually have respect for them, and I don't get it.
Right. And here's the deal. If it were anybody else, it would be all over the news, but not them. So here's my next segue. So that was a water death that was mysterious. I'm not going to go down the Matthew Perry road because you've covered that quite a bit on your channel. But I do want to ask you about something that's been happening since the late 90s. It seems to have taken an uptick. I recently did a show on this with a man William Ramsey, who wrote a book about it. It's heavily researched. We have hundreds of cases. The FBI, of course, and law enforcement are saying there's nothing to this, but they are called smiley face killers. And what happens is that young men, usually in their late teens to mid 20s, will leave a bar or something at night and they disappear. Searches happen. They search everywhere. They can't find them. And then days, weeks later, they will find these men in bodies of water, oftentimes in areas that have already been searched. In some cases, they have drugs in their system. And then they call it smiley face killer because it is believed by many that smiley faces either will be shown in graffiti or some way tangentially related to the person's death. So do you have any impressions on what that is? Because it seems like it took an uptick in Chicago and Austin just this summer.
Okay, well, I was listening to your show about that and I almost drove off the road. I'm like, I know what this is. Okay, so let's go back to the late 70s, early 80s, 90s. Let's go back to a huge musician, okay? Huge. I mean, a huge record executive, okay? High priest, Satanist in the music industry, okay? Geffen, just saying Geffen.
Well, he's still alive.
Let's go back to him. And let's say we're gay, because you and I aren't, but let's say that we were, if we were him. And let's say that we had a party van, let's say in Chicago, for example. This is my impression, by the way. So let's say we have a party van in Chicago. We go there on the weekends because we're doing rituals and we're gay. So we go into bars, we talk to nice young men. We say, here's $1,000, service me, come to a party. whatever. The guys don't even have to be gay. Somebody's going to hand you $5,000. You might get into a trick. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I might, but
Right.
they wouldn't be looking for me anyway. But yeah, it was, and that's what that's about. That's sadomasochistic, ritualistic, and I believe it's connected to that music mogul. I actually believe that. That is what I'm saying allegedly. So we don't both get kicked off of here or sued.
Right.
And if you're going to go down that road, you're going to go down to the pilots for that particular person and Oprah, and you're going to go to other countries where they can take videos and sell them for ritual purposes, etc., with their groups of celebrities, of which they're friends. Brazil is a place, etc. And then there's an outlet for trafficking at the same time, and you're going to bounce it for power. And that's actually what I think it's connected to, and that's why.
So these are torture snuff films, essentially.
Yes, yes. And then they put the bodies into water because water is ritualistically a baptism, and that would be like Matthew Perry baptism, satanic, okay, not Christian. And they clean them, if I'm correct, right? The bodies are cleaned and not, like they're not like, I don't know, rolled around in the mud kind of bodies. It's like they're put there and they're not completely disturbed, right?
Well, I think in some cases, they're still fully clothed. I don't remember if they're dirty per se, but the weird thing about it is these young men are seen leaving places and then they just kind of disappear. Usually it's late at night. And what you're saying tracks with some ideas that surround this. But like I say, FBI, law enforcement, they're like, no, this is all purely
They're not,
coincidental.
because they're paid off.
These are, of course, these are deaths by misadventure. Not to switch gears too much, but I got a lot I want to cover. So I think that you answered that. So another thing I want to ask you about that was super strange to me, and immediately flags went up to me. So the Maui fire.
Oh, God. Now you're going to open it.
Right. So the Maui fires seem to come out of nowhere and ravage this city, this town very quickly. It reminded me at the time, almost immediately, of some of the California fires that we had just a few years ago that bam, just showed up. I had a friend who was in Canada just a month or two prior, and he was photographing all of the Canadian fires. What is your take on Maui in particular, and is it related to those other fires as well?
Okay, what they're doing now, this is not allegedly, this is what I think. So, I mean, technically it is allegedly, but what I believe they're doing is we human beings, okay, so real human beings of God, excuse me, we buy our land, right?
Right.
We live in our land. We do what we do. They want it now because they want to encapsulate us. So they have HARP. They've had HARP since 1950, 57. That's what they're doing. I mean, fires just don't show up and they turn the water off. That's an assault. That's genocide on a group of people to take their property over. And it's really interesting because I had such a thought with this. So your former employer that you worked with, I won't say his name on here, but him, was a reporter.
A good friend, by the way.
A good friend, yeah. I just won't mention him in case I don't want to be brought into it. But we had a conversation, and do you remember that news anchor in Channel 5, and they found him in a motel like in 2000? Yes. With the meth and a guy in a mask and your former employer told me he was the first one to show up at the shooting in Las Vegas. Okay, so he was the first, that guy was first on the scene. And then your former employer got there. So when I mentioned that story, he was like, yeah, he was first on the scene. Okay, so he was there.
Interesting.
Now look at this. They take the police chief, as I'm sure you know, and they put him in Maui. That's a payoff. His secretary ends up dead 8 months after he's working. I mean, being transferred over, her paycheck goes to him. It's graft. So what do they need graft? What do they need to do? First of all, the government comes in, they take your property and they say, here, you can't afford to rebuild what you had because you couldn't get insurance on it because you and I can't get fire insurance here, right? So you can't build back, but we'll give you 50 cents on the dollar like they did in Paradise, California.
Right.
And the people are going to take it because why the hell would you take it? Then the government, they own all the land and we are forced further inland, like being cattle ranched, okay, cattles, like dogs are chasing us. Then you have Oprah, you got Oprah and The Rock, and you heard her say it. I want people to understand this too. You heard Oprah say, we are donating $10,000 for all the donations for one person. What, your relative, your mama? Who you doing that? It's in their wording. They think we're dumb. They want to own everything and take it. But what they don't understand is behind the scenes, spiritually, they're not going to win. So they are really not going to win. The fires in Canada, I came through Canada at the end of July, and the fires started, we drove up the Spokane way, the West Coast side, and and I know the fires were through Alberta. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. What, fires are just combusting? Come on.
No, everything you're saying has crossed my radar from the get-go. It seems like a gigantic land grab.
Yeah.
In Maui, in Lahaina, that area was sacred to the native Hawaiians, so they do not want to give up that land. I mean,
they shouldn't. It's their land,
right? And people have been trying to buy it for years. They're like, no, we're not selling because this is our land. And I believe before Hawaii was annexed, that was actually kind of the capital of whatever government the Hawaiian Islands had. But so anyway, from the get-go, I thought, listen, this is arson. So is it a direct energy weapon? What,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
It
definitely seems like
however they
arson.
do it.
Yeah.
It's probably some guy in a ninja suit running around doing it. But the reason they're doing it in particular areas as well is because in Hawaii, at least, this came to me. First of all, children are missing. They're always trafficking them. Okay. And that's why Oprah and The Rock are there. I don't care if you guys are big fans of them. I don't care. Like, pay attention. Oprah has a pilot that flies in and out of the country. I happen to work with some of these people's pilots I know, and some of these people I work, like, they were dating them and shit. But also understand the energy underneath these places is used to open portals and dimensions. That's why the government wants it. That's why the Hawaiian natives are there, because the ancestors come through there and it gives them power. They're not for everybody. That's why the Hawaiians were born there, and I'm Canadian and you're American and whatever. It's because we are born to where we're supposed to be. But these people want to own and control everything. It boils down to they don't have any personality of their own, and therefore they want to take ours, meaning the natives to Hawaii, the natives to America, the Canadian, Inuit, whatever. They want to abolish it. They want to take everything. And America is a weak ass country. Unfortunately, America is going through their Pluto return.
Yes.
But Americans are I wanted to move here because I thought Canadians were stupid. And I'm Canadian, okay? So I was like, the government I couldn't stand. But people here, I just am like, wow, I'm amazed at the lack of freedom for self, freedom to think on their own. I'm shocked.
The last 5 to 7 years have blown my mind. I mean, I did not think the 21st century would look like this. And I've said it many times on different shows. The 21st century has been terrible for the United States. And all of these people that you're talking about who think in this way, they've just been led by the nose through the fourth branch of government, which is media. Oh, hate this, like this, despise that, embrace this. And so people just go along with it because they don't want to be disliked.
They're disliked. The government hates us. This is obvious.
Right. I tend to agree with it. Well, hey, let's change gears another time, because one of the funny things that you said in our last interview, you were talking about how you used to be, and you probably still are, taken to the studios to read for various people, which people who don't live in Hollywood might find this incredibly hard to believe, but no, this is the way they roll. So this is just a local story. It's more than a local story, but it's not quite as depressing as the other ones. What do you think ends up happening with this SAG-AFTRA strike? And
oh my God, everybody I know is in on, my family member, everybody works at the studios. It's a predominance.
Yeah.
I feel they'll settle it, but I don't feel they'll settle it properly. So what they want to do, and what people don't understand, is they want to, for example, Bruce, who's got dementia now and can't be Bruce Willis anymore the way we know him. They want to take those films of him and make them like you, Michael, in your living room could be his character in a movie fighting him. And that's actually what's going to happen. They're trying to contain us. What it is it's a stealing of consciousness. Okay. That is what they are trying to do through SAG-AFTRA. Because keep in mind, it's a beast system run thing. Like, where else do you notice that they act like their productions are so important? Like, I'm sorry, fuck off. Who are you? You don't count. You're no more important. They work you 20 hours a day. Those local unions, they work them. They work them because my family's in on it. They work them 20 hours a day. They can't even drive home. They have to sleep in their cars. Yeah.
I've worked production and television.
Yeah, and they act like it's not that important. Go to hell. No one cares. You're not that special. They're going to find that out. But here's what's going to happen. The consciousness that they're stealing, that's what it's really about. So the actors are saying they're not getting paid for their name and likeness, which is true. If they've been on a soap opera for 20 years and they take that image and then they cartoon it and then they AI it, it's not really her, but it is her. You see what I'm saying? So their actors are trying to gather for them, and I totally get it. But what they're doing behind the scenes is stealing the consciousness of the actors, which blocks them when they die and they try to cross over. So they will contain it in an AI image. That's the problem. You can't say that. You can't put that in writing because it sounds crazy. But that's what you need. That's what you have to understand about it behind the scenes. If any actor says, yeah, you can use my image for your whatever AI, voice, like Siri is actually AI, right? Google Maps, whatever, that's AI. So whoever that person is, they can actually use like a conduction energy to steal the consciousness. So that person's voice and likeness is over here. And when they try to cross over and then go elsewhere, they have to pull all of their energy with them. That's the struggle when we die, not the death. The calling back all of our energy. The studios is trying to split us so we can't go on. They're trying to hobble us, for lack of a better word. So we cannot traverse where we have to go, which is out of this consciousness. I really believe that. I sound crazy, but I believe that's what I think.
I know that the whole AI aspect of it is a huge thing. I didn't ever take it to the place that you just took it, which is very heavy.
Yeah,
you said something.
Take it there.
You said something interesting a few minutes ago. I should have followed up on it then, but because we've got a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes left. You mentioned that the U.S. is experiencing its Pluto return. So for people who are not into astrology, explain what that is, what it means, and what you see for the next year or two.
So the Pluto return is everything you're seeing. Think of the Roman Empire. Think at the time that Rome was taken to the ground and burnt. They had vomitoriums. They had bisexual. They had eunuchs. They had men dressed as women, women dressed as men, and orgies, right? They had every form, and I'll use the word sinful, but against respect, okay? I know you're entitled to do whatever you want, right? But if you're bulimic after eating an 8-course meal, you're just plain right disrespectful. If you're bulimic because you have a problem, that's separate. I'm just saying these people, the vomitoriums, that used to freak me out. But anyway, when I write about the history, right now, Pluto is a planet that comes in and removes, reshapes, rips up, destroys, bombs, blows up anything and everything that no longer works. Okay, like if it's in your chart and it's aspecting something, it's like the plumbing under your house that you don't know is broken until your house sinks into the ground, like poltergeist and is underneath water, and you're like, what just happened? That is what we're going through. We have a couple of hits before December, plus another retrograde. As we go into next year and Pluto moves, okay, into Aquarius, this is going to be a nightmare next year. This is going to be people who have to be right. So they got to be right? Like even if they say stupid shit, they got to be right. Like smoking cigarettes doesn't harm you. Okay, go away. They will argue for that. They're selfish and self-focused. So we're hitting a point in the Bible where there will be lovers of self as soon as Pluto crosses into Aquarius. Lovers of self, like look where selfie lovers of self.
Well, that's what it sounds like to me. It's like social media, selfie, the whole thing.
Yeah, lovers of self. And when you love of self, you have no consideration for your neighbor, for even your kids, for your husband or wife, or the neighbor or whoever. You have no consideration. So lovers of self also will go against in America because it'll be self first, not unity. So they want this vibration. America's going to be burnt to the ground. Our dollar's going to draw everything. Like, it's not a good place to be. Well, you can see that. You live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You walk around. What the hell happened? Can you
No,
even? Can you even?
Sloan, everything you're saying, I have said similar things for a long while. I've said on many shows that I think that this is a socially engineered implosion. So you do a lot of different things to divide people up into tiny factions so they no longer feel that they are part of one thing. They identify with their sex or their race or their gender or whatever. The point is you're just taking people and making them feel like they are disconnected from the whole.
Yeah.
And then that makes them much easier to control. And they're more identified with that than being an American or a human.
So what people have to do, this is just how I practice, because we really have no control. Okay. You can go to the voting thing and do all you want. It doesn't matter. Your guy's still probably not winning, whatever. You can watch TV and you can say that's a good point, but will that point be implemented or will the person get murdered? Right? We don't know. So the only thing we can do as people is literally not pay attention to any of it, and live our life. So at this point in my life now, and basically since Keith left in 2020, I don't do anything I don't want to do. I don't do it for money. I don't do it to pay a bill. I don't get up. I don't do it to show up in court if court mandated. I only do, if this is my last breath, what makes me smile. That's it. I'm not doing for anybody else anymore. Like, I'm really not. I'm not going to spend a day freaking out, thinking about government. So I choose to put my energy up here. I mean, of course, I'm going to talk about it publicly. I'm on your thing. I get that. But I don't spend a lot of time. I don't watch TV. I work on my physical health and I make sure that I'm kind to people because a lot of us are going to be leaving. Kind of reminds me of Escape from New York, but in the way that we're all going to be segregated in those, do you remember that movie with
of course, Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
Snake Plissken.
Yes, exactly. Love him. Anyway.
Sloan, you read my mind. That was going to be my kind of summation, is those of us who want to get through this. And I guess that's part of what happened to me in Turkey. Is like, because I've been in this world of podcasting and internet radio and television since like the mid 2006. And I've been very involved in this, often to my own detriment. And now I've had this feeling, which is very similar to yours, that I'm trying to transcend it and try to figure out how to do the next thing. And I think that a lot of people are at the same time.
Yeah, that's what you do. So when people ask me, like in my real life, what if Trump wins again? Or what if this, I'm like, I just started laughing. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. It does not matter. You have no control. The only way we have control is if we all unite, and we're not going to do that. So I might as well smile. I mean, if you're going to come rob my house and shoot me, I'm going to be smiling on my way out the door. I don't care. So I don't hold anything because we're dead here. This is what this is. They want us to think it's important here. That's why they lie about death. Getting back to your initial question about your brother, they lie about death being a bad thing because those people are not dead. They are still alive. That's why I don't celebrate a Day of the Dead. Dead means stepping away from God. Now, if you're celebrating your loved ones who are dead, who have transitioned, then that's your business. But to be dead is to be absent from God and not in that light. You are dead. You've given that up. Okay. That is not us. Our loved ones are not dead. They have transitioned out of this dimension. So we've been taught wrong all the way along. We are dead here. We can't see them. They're like, okay, this bitch is going to die in 20 years. She's going to come over here. I'll see her. Right. It's not a bad thing. We've been taught to hate it as if it's something not right. It's a great honor to cross over and to actually elevate up, to get off of here. This is not a good place, as you can tell. So we're here and we have our kids and our families and we love them. That's why would we not? But when they die, I don't look at it the same way. I miss them, but they have gone on. They're not dead. They're out of their physical body. And the one thing I can tell you is, and this was from being at my son's accident site 20 minutes after he died. Okay. So being with the body, he was not there. Okay. He was gone like that. There was no smell to them because I tried to smell them. There was no, it was a complete, like this, nothing in it, just a container. It was him physically, but his essence was gone. And when I felt the energy move out, it literally shot up super quick, like a Star Trek episode without being too weird.
When they beam up.
Yeah, shot up so quick to get out of here. And the energy here tried to pull him back. Now I'm talking about his energy, not his body. I'm
right.
I understand.
Not his thing.
Yeah. So to get out of this atmosphere, they have us gridded here. We don't even know who we are. So we have to know we're strong. We're allowed to say no. No, I don't want to do it. Not going to do it. You know what I mean? Don't care if you yell at me and arrest me and shoot me. I'm not doing it. Because when you pass over, you'll be so understanding what they were trying to do here. It'll be like stepping out of jail or an abusive relationship and going, oh yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So yeah.
Sloan, I didn't ask about your son because it's your story to tell. And,
yeah,
I didn't want to ask.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mention him incessantly because, that's what I do.
I do the same. And the Day of the Dead, I take it as a celebration of our ancestors and our family members who've left. And I don't know, it's just been on my mind a lot. But Sloan, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, I'm going to try to have this out for everybody tomorrow. It'll be on all podcast platforms. Hopefully your legion of fans will watch it on YouTube. Tell everybody where they find you. Oh, by the way, there's like 3 or 4 different Sloan Bellas on TikTok. So I'm still trying to figure out which one is the right one.
I'm the one with 80, I think I have 85,000 followers or 84.5. All those other weirdos are stealing mine and I keep reporting them and TikTok does nothing.
Right. So where could people find you on YouTube and it's sloanbella.com?
Yeah, sloanbella.com, and then YouTube is just Sloan Bella. So it's at Sloan Bella, and you'll see me because I do live stream. So you'll know I'll probably wear this tonight when I live stream. You'll still know it's me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sloan Bella,
Sloan,
I love you so much. It's like you're always fun and I enjoy talking to you and you tell it the way it is. You're not afraid to. And I just enjoy our conversations.
We must never be afraid. Nobody must be afraid. And by the way, happy birthday. Yours is coming up.
Yes, it is in just a few days. So I'm not saying how old I am.
110. That's good.
Looking good for 110, though, I think.
Excellent.
Sloan, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All
okay.
Right. Cheers.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening today. My name is Michael Parker. If you like this show and you feel that what I'm doing is of worth, please subscribe, tell your friends and family. And until next time, keep your heart and your mind open.